Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The candles were still flickering when she told me I disgusted her. 12 people in the room. Half of them her co-workers I barely knew. The other half are so-called friends who suddenly found the carpet pattern fascinating. I hadn't even cut the cake yet. She stood there, wine glass trembling in her hand, eyes locked on mine like I'd just committed murder instead of asking her. Gently, mind you, if she could put her phone down for one moment. Just one moment. I cannot do this, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You are, God, you're suffocating me. And then came that little laugh. The one she uses when she's trying to make me look like a joke. The room went still. I tried to play it off. I even chuckled awkwardly and said something like, well, I guess someone's had too much champagne. But then she stepped forward. No, Emory, don't start with the whole, I'm the victim act. You are emotionally draining. You cling to me like a wet towel and wonder why I'm always tired. I could feel my ears burning. My stomach dropped like I'd swallowed glass. The cake knife was still in my hand. I thought about just cutting the cake, pretending none of it happened, smiling through the humiliation like I always do. But instead, I whispered, why are you doing this? On my birthday? That's when she saw me. Really saw me. My face must have looked broken because her whole expression shifted. Her posture softened. She blinked like she'd just snapped out of a trance. Wait, I didn't mean that. I'm Emory, I'm sorry. I love you. I was just overwhelmed. But you don't call someone a parasite because you're overwhelmed. And that night was just the start. Because 3 days later, I found out who'd been texting her at 2 a.m. And it wasn't her sister. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. I just lay there in the dark, pretending to be asleep, while Rayanne's breathing stayed steady and cold next to me. Every now and then I'd hear her phone buzz on the nightstand. She never turned off her notifications at night. Not anymore. She used to, back when we used to talk in bed instead of turning our backs to each other. At around 2:17 a.m., her screen lit up again. And I saw the name. Grayson. That was enough. Grayson wasn't her brother. Wasn't her coworker. Wasn't anyone I knew. And maybe I wouldn't have jumped to conclusions if she hadn't just called me suffocating in front of everyone we knew, then fumbled to take it back like a dropped glass. But now, I couldn't ignore it. I got out of bed as quietly as I could and went into the kitchen. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. I wish I could say I was mad. But it was heartbreak. That quiet kind of heartbreak that just hums in your chest like a dying light bulb. I sat down, opened my laptop, and searched her iCloud login. I knew it. Not because I'm some control freak, but because she told me. We used to be that open. She used to say she had nothing to hide. 10 minutes later, I was staring at synced messages she had no idea were even syncing. Dozens from Grayson. Some were harmless. Others, not so much. He didn't even notice the new dress. Typical. You deserve better. You know that, right? I'll make it up to you Saturday. Same hotel. Same hotel. There was a folder in her photos titled Receipts. I opened it. Hotel confirmations. Uber rides. Spa appointments. All under my nose. It wasn't just one mistake. This was organized. Routine. My throat dried out. My hands went numb. And even then, even with all that in front of me, I told myself, there has to be a reasonable explanation. That's how deep my denial was. That's how badly I didn't want it to be real. But it was. That morning, Rayanne was making coffee like nothing had happened. She even put a plate out for me. There was no happy birthday banner, no leftover cake, nothing that acknowledged the disaster the night before. Just the smell of fresh coffee and fake normalcy. I sat down at the table, looked at her, and said, "Who's Grayson?" She froze, just for a second, but I noticed. Then she smiled. "You're going through my phone now?" "No," I said, my voice barely steady. "I saw the name last night when your screen lit up, and I checked the iCloud. You never signed out." Her expression didn't change, not even a flicker of guilt. "You're insane," she said calmly. "Do you realize that? You're paranoid and obsessed with being the victim. Always have been." I just stared at her. No yelling. No accusing. I was too tired for that. Too hurt. "Did you sleep with him?" I asked. Silence. She didn't answer. But she didn't have to. She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language, her eyes locked in this eerie, practiced stillness. The kind of silence that isn't nervous, it's calculated. She was already 2 steps ahead. I could feel it. She didn't panic, didn't cry, didn't do any of the things I imagined someone might do when they're caught cheating on their spouse. Instead, she tilted her head and let out this dry, exasperated sigh, as if I was the one complicating her morning. I'm not having this conversation with you, Emory. Not before I've had my coffee. She turned back to the counter, casually stirred in her creamer, and acted like I hadn't just said the most damning sentence of our marriage. But I wasn't done. Not this time. So you did sleep with him? I asked again. Still no yelling. Still just waiting. She finally turned back around, cup in hand, and said, "You're really going to throw away 6 years of marriage over a bunch of messages you snooped through?" That was her move. Turn the blame around. Make it about my reaction, not her betrayal. You didn't answer the question, I said. Did you sleep with him? A pause. Then, it wasn't like that. I felt something in my chest collapse. Not burst. Collapse. Quiet. Final. Irreversible. You were in room 314 at the Caldera Inn, I said, watching her reaction like a detective in an interrogation room. That did it. Her pupils widened for a split second. She blinked once, twice. Then she set her coffee down without taking a sip and leaned against the counter like her knees had gone soft. I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshot. The booking confirmation, the check-in time, the Uber drop-off. All time-stamped. All irrefutable. I know everything, Rayan, I said. My voice cracked a little when I said it. Not because I wanted to sound weak, but because I was weak. I loved her. I had built a life around her. I planned our future around someone who was lying to me with the calmness of a surgeon. She sat down slowly, like the weight of it all had finally reached her spine. I didn't plan it, she muttered. It just happened. We were talking, and I felt seen. Seen. The word stabbed me more than the confession itself. I've spent the last year begging you to see me, Rayan. I've tried. God knows I've tried. And you felt seen by some guy who knows you from conference calls and compliments your shoes? You don't understand, she said quickly, almost defensively. You drain me, Emory. You're so emotional all the time. Everything's a crisis. I needed a break from feeling like your therapist. That's when it hit me. She didn't want a husband. She wanted someone who didn't need anything from her. Someone she could impress and perform for. Not someone who cried after a bad day at work or asked to be held when the panic attacks came back. I stood up. I'm going to stay with my brother for a few days, I said. Don't call me. Don't text. I need time to figure out what I'm even doing here. She didn't fight it. She didn't beg. She just nodded once and said, okay. And as I grabbed my coat, she called after me. Wait. I paused in the doorway, heart in my throat, some tiny shred of me still hoping she'd say something real. I didn't mean what I said on your birthday, she whispered. I do love you. But it was too late. She'd already lit the match. Now she wanted to pretend the fire wasn't real. The drive to my brother's place felt longer than usual, like the universe was stretching the distance just to mess with me. I didn't blast music like I usually do when I need to clear my head. I didn't cry either. I'd done enough of that in the garage before pulling out of the driveway. My phone sat in the passenger seat, face down. She hadn't called. Not once. I told her not to, and she was always good at obeying when it served her. Silence was her most polished skill. Colby, my younger brother, lived in a small townhouse about 40 minutes away. He's the kind of guy who thrives in chaos. Gamer gear everywhere, 3-day-old pizza crusts under the coffee table, socks that haven't seen the inside of a drawer since 2019. But that night, it felt like sanctuary. When he opened the door and saw my face, he didn't ask anything. Just pulled me in and slapped me on the back like he already knew. I guess I didn't hide it well. He didn't press for details that night. We ordered takeout and watched some mindless reality show until I passed out on his lumpy couch. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells or auditioning for my wife's affection. I just existed. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop. 10 missed calls. All from Rayan. And then came the text messages. Can we talk? I didn't sleep last night. Please don't throw us away like this. You misunderstood everything. I love you. I always have. I wanted to scream. Not because she was reaching out, but because of the timing. Where was this urgency on my birthday? Where was this energy when I begged her to talk to me instead of scrolling Instagram in bed? Still, I couldn't bring myself to block her. I just let the notifications pile up like snow on a rooftop, cold, weighty, and silent. Around noon, I asked Colby for space. I needed to think. to feel something other than shame and failure. I ended up taking a walk to this tiny park near his place. There were a few families there, kids laughing, couples holding hands, the occasional old man feeding birds like it was a sacred ritual. And I felt like a ghost among them. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a photo. A picture of the small wooden box I kept on my nightstand. The one where I kept notes Rayan wrote me over the years. Birthday scribbles, tiny love notes, silly doodles from when we first moved in together. I'd saved all of them. I guess part of me always feared I'd need them someday. I was reading these, she texted. I forgot how much we had. I stared at the image. The edges of the paper looked worn, creased from time and revisits. She hadn't thrown them out. She hadn't even mentioned them before. It was like she rediscovered something and thought it would be enough to fix the damage. But it wasn't. Love notes don't erase lies. Sweet memories don't clean hotel sheets. I didn't reply. I just stared at the photo for a while before locking my phone and shoving it deep into my jacket pocket. And that's when I noticed something strange. Sitting on the park bench across from me was Grayson. At least, I was pretty sure it was him. Same smirk from his LinkedIn profile, same arrogant posture. He was on the phone, laughing about something, completely unaware that the man he'd betrayed, the man whose wife he'd seduced, was sitting 20 feet away. And the worst part? He was wearing the watch I bought Rayanne for our anniversary last year. I don't know how long I sat there watching him. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 20. Time stopped meaning anything the second I saw that watch, my watch, on his wrist. He didn't even try to hide it. He kept waving his hands around as he talked, flashing it like some sick trophy. It was unmistakable. Black leather band, tiny scratch near the buckle. Rayanne had picked it out with me at the outlet store last year. She'd said it was sleek but sentimental. I remembered the way her eyes lit up when she helped me fasten it. Now it was wrapped around his smug wrist like a prize he didn't earn. And he was laughing. Loud, sharp, carefree laughter. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I didn't need to. His whole body screamed arrogance. He looked like a man who had zero guilt, like a man who knew he'd won something, someone, and didn't give a damn what it cost the other guy. Me. For a second, I thought about walking over. About asking him point blank how long it had been going on, if she meant the things she said to him, if he even knew how much she used to cry in my arms over things she said she'd never tell another soul. But the moment I shifted forward, I caught myself in the reflection of the bus stop glass. I looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in a week. Wrinkled clothes, hollow eyes, hair sticking out at odd angles. I looked like someone who didn't belong in his own skin. And I thought, what am I even trying to prove? That I still mattered? That I still existed outside of her betrayal? So I didn't walk over. I got up and left. My legs felt heavy, like I was moving through water, and I'm not proud to admit this, but the second I turned the corner, I broke down behind a dumpster like some nameless extra in a movie no one watches to the end. I slid down the wall and buried my face in my sleeves and sobbed like a kid who lost his mom in a grocery store. It wasn't just about her. Or him. It was everything. All the birthdays she forgot. The dinners eaten in silence. The weekends I spent planning dates she'd cancel last minute. The quiet insults disguised as jokes. The apologies I always made first, even when I didn't understand what I was apologizing for. And now, she wanted to talk? Now she remembered the love letters? When I got back to Colby's, I didn't say much. He handed me a beer and turned the volume down on his game. He never had the right words, but somehow, his silence was louder than anything Rayanne had said in weeks. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I stared at the ceiling thinking about how easily people forget the promises they make. How one day someone looks at you like you're their whole world, and the next, they're holding hands with someone else in a hotel room, justifying it by saying they were tired of carrying your emotions. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed again. I left something in your drawer. I think you should read it. Please, Emory. She'd never used my name like that in a message before. Not in a long time. It felt deliberate. I told myself I wouldn't reply, that I wouldn't play into whatever guilt game she was about to start. But curiosity is a cruel master. The next day, I drove home. Not to see her, not to talk, just to find whatever it was she left for me. And when I opened the drawer, my hands started shaking all over again. It was buried under a pair of socks I never wore. The ones Rand bought me for a Valentine's Day I had almost completely blocked from memory. They were covered in little cartoon tacos and said, "Let's taco about love." I remember laughing when she gave them to me, and how she looked disappointed that I didn't take it more seriously. Looking back now, I think she was already starting to resent me then. Underneath those socks was a folded sheet of notebook paper. Not a card. Not some elegant stationery or perfume-sprayed envelope like in the movies. Just lined paper, torn unevenly from a spiral notebook. My name was scrawled in the center in rushed handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before I unfolded it. Inside, there wasn't an apology. There wasn't even an explanation. Instead, it was a list. A literal, numbered list. Things I never said to you. I hated how much you needed me when your dad died. I didn't know how to be that person for you. I lied when I said I wanted to go to couples therapy. I only said it to shut you up. I felt trapped from the moment we signed the lease on that apartment. I kissed someone else before I ever met Grayson. I don't think I ever really forgave you for crying during our honeymoon. I love the version of you in our first year. I don't love the one you became. I sometimes imagine what my life would have been like if I never married you. I still don't know if I'm sorry for any of this. At the bottom, she wrote, maybe I'm the villain. Maybe you are. Maybe we both are. But now you know. That letter did something to me I wasn't prepared for. It didn't break me. I was already broken. But it clarified things in a way that no fight, no confession, no apology ever could. She wasn't reaching out to fix anything. She wasn't even trying to soften the blow. She just wanted to drop the last stone and walk away lighter. I sat there on the edge of the bed, reading it again and again, until the words stopped hurting and started making sense. Rayan didn't cheat because I failed her. She cheated because she was already gone. She'd been gone for years, emotionally checked out while I kept setting the table for two. It was never about Grayson. It wasn't even about me. It was about escape. And now, I finally saw it for what it was. Not a marriage, but a long, slow goodbye where only one of us knew we were leaving. I folded the letter, walked into the kitchen, and burned it over the sink. I watched the edges curl and blacken, the ink disappearing like her promises. I thought maybe I'd feel free after that. That maybe I'd finally feel something strong and righteous, like closure. But all I felt was numb. And just when I thought the day couldn't get worse, my phone rang. Not Rayan this time. It was Colby. Hey, he said, his voice tight. You're gonna want to sit down. My heart dropped. What happened? He sighed, then said something that made my stomach twist into knots. I just saw Rayan. She's not alone. And you're not going to believe who she's with. Colby didn't say anything for a few seconds after dropping that bomb. I could hear the sound of his car blinker clicking, his breath caught in his throat like he was still debating whether to tell me the rest. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, bracing myself. Who is she with, Colby? My voice came out strained, not like a demand, more like a plea. Like I already knew it wasn't going to be just another slap. It was going to be the kind that knocks your breath out entirely. He finally exhaled. Darren. At first, it didn't register. I blinked. Darren? My cousin Darren? The same Darren who helped me move my things out of Rayan's apartment a few days ago? The same Darren who cried with me on the back porch last Christmas after Dad's health scare? That Darren? I actually laughed. It came out broken and weird, like my body didn't know how else to respond. You're joking, I said. I wish I was, Colby answered. They were at the Galloway, sitting real close. Like, real close. And she had her hand on his knee, Emory. They weren't hiding anything. I nearly dropped the phone. The Galloway. That was my favorite little spot near the river. The one I took Rayan to on our anniversary the second year we got married. The one she said felt too cheap the last time I suggested we go back. And now she was there, on my turf, with someone who shared my blood. My mind started spinning. When would they have even? Were they already something before Grayson? Was Grayson just a decoy? Some convenient villain so she could redirect my attention? I didn't respond to Colby. I hung up. I stood in my kitchen for what felt like hours, just staring out the window at nothing. My heart wasn't beating fast. It was slow, steady, heavy, like it had accepted that this was just the new reality. Everyone I trust will betray me, sooner or later. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to scream. I just wanted to disappear. But something in me, some barely breathing shard of dignity, refused to sink any lower than I already had. So I did something completely out of character. I got in my car and drove straight to the Galloway. Not to fight, not to yell, just to see for myself. The hostess recognized me right away and smiled. Back again, Mr. Rudd? Just you today? I nodded. Mind if I take the booth by the window? The same booth Rayan and I used to sit at. I didn't even have to look far. They were there, in the back. Rayanne's hand resting on Darren's wrist as he leaned in, whispering something. She laughed. I watched them for exactly 4 minutes and 38 seconds. I didn't make a scene. I didn't approach. I just watched and listened. And when she excused herself to go to the restroom, I stood up, walked straight over to Darren, and sat down across from him without a word. His face drained of color. Emory. I held up my hand. Don't speak. Just listen. I slid my phone across the table. On the screen was a photo of us, me and Darren, on his back porch last Thanksgiving. 2 beers in hand. Brothers in everything but name. Delete this from your phone. And from your life. We're done. Don't ever text me again. I stood up and walked away before he could even blink. But as I passed the restroom hallway, Rayanne stepped out. She saw me. And for the first time since this all began, she looked like the one who had just been sucker punched. She stood there frozen, her lips slightly parted like she had a dozen things to say, but couldn't decide which lie to use first. Rayanne had always been quick with her words, always had a rehearsed line ready, a backup excuse polished and tucked away. But now, in that narrow hallway with no more shadows to hide in, she said nothing. And I didn't wait for her to try. I walked right past her, calm, almost weightless. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I had nothing left to give her. Not my heartbreak, not my confusion, not my tears. She'd spent so long draining me, and for once, I had finally decided to stop letting her. Outside, the air felt cleaner, sharper, like the world was suddenly mine again. I didn't go back to Colby's. I didn't drive in circles like I used to when my anxiety peaked. I drove to the park near the lake, the one where I proposed to Rayanne 6 years ago. I sat on a bench overlooking the water and just breathed. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself think about me, not as someone's husband, or someone's problem, or someone's second choice, but just me. Emory Rudd, a man who survived loving the wrong person the right way. Weeks passed. I didn't hear from her again. Darren stayed silent too. Colby offered to break both their phones, but I just laughed and told him I was good. I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. Nothing fancy, just a few pages each morning. Thoughts, reflections, even bad poetry. And I joined this little grief support group at the library, not just for death, but for all kinds of loss. Turns out, losing someone who's still alive can sometimes hurt more than losing the dead. And then one day, I met someone. Not in some dramatic, fireworks exploding way. Just a kind smile from across a table at a local book club. Her name was Quinn. She liked black coffee, used bookstores, and she didn't ask about my past. She just asked what I was reading. I don't know where it's going. And for once, I'm okay with that. Because now I know that loving someone shouldn't feel like surviving them. Now, I know what peace feels like. So if you're listening to this and you're where I was, confused, shattered, clinging to someone who keeps letting go of you, I hope this story reminds you. The worst day of your life might just lead you to the best version of yourself. You just have to keep walking. What moment shocked you the most? Was it the letter Rayanne left? The betrayal by Darren? Or the final scene at the restaurant? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what hit you hardest. And if you made it this far, thank you. Really, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more stories right here on Reddit Confessions.